In our previous video, we talked about different things. So I told you guys I was going to talk about brown tips today, and we're just going to dive into it. And before I start, I told you guys in my previous video that a hair gotten from a donor does not necessarily mean that that hair is a raw hair, or that hair has a quality or is a high quality hair. You get, there are ways that they categorize hair sourcing, and that's also apply to brown tip hairs. You can see a brown tip hair, but that does not mean that it is qualified to be under the category of raw hair. And for you to actually understand how brown tip hair works, you actually need to understand how the melanin pigment in the hair works. Because you ask yourself, how does brown tip happen? Because brown tip is not a dyed hair. Brown tip is not a finishing touches that is being done by the factory. Brown tip is nothing but something that occurs naturally in some hair. So scientifically, brown tip happens when the melanin pigment in the hair breaks down slowly over time due to age, sun, or oxygen exposure. So now let me explain it to you so that you can understand it. When a hair grows, when a hair grows out from the scalp, the first hairs that have grown out of the scalp is what we actually used to see as the oldest hair. Because even if you make your hair, or even if your hair is growing, the hair will keep on growing from the scalp, not from the tip. So the ones at the tip, the ones that has been grown down to this place, like that, those ones are the one that has been exposed to sunlight, exposed to age, and exposed to oxygen and every environmental changes. So as time or as time goes on, when somebody is growing and everything, and every other thing is affecting your health or affecting your environment, that particular hair that has been there over the years will start breaking down. Like the melanin in the hair will start breaking down, because as it stretches, as the one coming out here is growing, the one that's coming out here that is growing contains more protein structure, more effective melanin system, and all of those things. So the one that is already here now, due to the fact that it has been exposed for the longest time, the melanin in the hair begins to break down. You get, it begins to break down, which can result to that brown tip you're seeing. You get that? So this brown tip is not something that you just come and then it will just happen like that. It happens slowly. When the melanin pigment in the hair continues to break down slowly, it happens after years. It don't just happen in minutes. You get, it happens after years. So real brown tip happen in years. So I actually explained before in my previous video about the two pigments that we have in the hair. You get, I told you that there's what we call the eumelanin and the pheomelanin. The eumelanin is actually what you determine if the hair is going to be black or brown. So when a melanin pigment is breaking down, especially the eumelanin pigment, because we're talking about the darker hairs now, when it breaks down slowly, because when you use bleach to actually break down, or when you use bleach on a hair, what happens? It starts to lift, right? When it lifts from brown, and then lighter, it gets to orange, and then yellow, and then blonde. You get that? That is the graduation of it. So now, what happens with the exposure of sunlight? It breaks down. The melanin pigment in the hair now, it breaks down slowly. Not with the effect of bleach right now, but with the effect of everything around the environment. When it breaks down slowly, it now gets you to that brown tip. You get that? It happens slowly. Sometimes it's uneven. It has this specific color. You understand? Like when something is going gradually, you see it. But when something is done with bleach faster, there's this uneven, like it does not really look naturally. One thing you also need to understand is that this brown tip differ by regions. This shade of the brown tip differ by regions. It might not be the way this particular region's own is going to look, that this one region's own is going to look. You get that? I already told you guys about strand thickness. I told you guys about melanin pigments and how it can also affect a behavior of a hair. The denser the hair, the denser the melanin pigments in the hair and the internal structure, that will also affect the way the hair will behave. You get, you can have I gave an example in my previous video that you can have a two medium hair, a two medium thickness. You understand? And the internal structure of those medium hair is different and will not behave the same way. So having the same strand thickness does not guarantee that the hair is going to behave the same way. You get that? That is how the whole region is. It might behave differently. It might look differently. Brown tip will only tell you how the hair has been, how long the hair has been, how the situation of the climate and the environment has been. Brown tip don't always guarantee quality, and not all brown tip can be classified as a raw hair. Quality hair is determined by cortical alignment, cortex integrity, elasticity, protein structure, and processing history. that is how you need to know a good hair or a raw hair or a quality hair. That is what you used to know it. So not because of a hair has a brown tip, that automatically means that the hair is a raw hair. Do you get that? Even if it is not processed. A hair can actually be old but strong, old but damaged, young but strong, young but damaged. So most of the times, or some of the times, age will not always tell you the quality of the hair. Though some factories will always put age in it and think that okay, that is actually like those age or the age, that age bracket is what will tell you the history of the hair, that this particular group of people might have not gone through the problems of life or the harsh weather and all of those things. But that does not guarantee that a certain quality or the peak of a quality is gotten from those age group. You get, a young child can also have a non-quality hair. You get, and an adult can also have more quality hair than a young child. Sometimes it's genetic, sometimes it's just like that. You get, so age don't always guarantee, but age is one of the major things that they look at. You understand that now? So brown tip will just always tell you that okay, this hair show that it is aged. You get, but it's still strong. But another brown tip too can show you that okay, this is a brown tip, but the quality is low. You get, so brown tip don't guarantee that the hair is a raw hair. You get, these things I mentioned before now is what guarantees if a hair is a raw hair. And brown tip behaves differently when it's bleaching. It does not lift fast, it lifts slowly and gradually. You get that? It lifts slowly and gradually. Sometimes factories maneuver these things in their factory. These factories, sometimes they try to mimic these black hairs. So if you don't really know how to detect the brown tip or how to test out a brown tip, you might actually be buying a look-alike of a brown tip or a hair that has been processed in the factory and called a brown tip. You get that? So all these things now just boils down to how the hair is sourced. Be sure of how the hair is sourced. Be sure that okay, this is gotten like this, because a lot of things can happen in the factory. And not all hair, I told you guys, guarantee that is a raw hair. Or not all hair that is cut out from somebody guarantees that is a raw hair. Sometimes the cuticle might be damaged in a way, or the cuticle might not align like that. You get that? And age does not necessarily mean that quality is guaranteed.